On this episode of Get Uplifted, we revisit a group of kids I met almost 10 years ago. They have now built a TEDx stage from scratch. Also, a nursing class in Baltimore sat down for the hardest exam of their lives, and every single one of them passed on their first try. A high schooler decided that no girl should have to miss school because of her period, so she did something about it, and a mother walked across a graduation stage on the same day as her son. I'm Allison Seymour, and this is Get Uplifted. Welcome in. Well, every story on the show is built with the same idea that good news, it's not soft news. It is the harder story to report because it takes longer to build than it does to break. And in this episode, every single one of these stories belongs to somebody young or young at heart. We're starting with a segment that I've wanted to do for a very long time. I call it the catch up. Here's how it works. I go back, find the young people that I met years ago, the ones that were put on television when they were small, and then ask them the only question that actually matters. What happened next? Well, in Haymarket, Virginia, these now high school and almost college students organized the city's first ever TEDx talk this spring. All the speakers were students hoping to create a space for ideas that are often hidden, overlooked, or misunderstood. And this one really hits home for me because the students behind this very event are all young people that I met years ago. Back then, they were in elementary school working on a project called Seeing Eye to Eye. And they recently reached back out saying that moment helped inspire what they built today. The students, led by Anjali Patel, created Seeing Eye to Eye to connect with seniors at a Manassas living community back then and to make sure that no one felt forgotten. Well, the young people Skyped with senior citizens. They built real friendships, and what stuck with me back then in 2018 was how seriously they took that responsibility and how much they taught me about showing up for people. Well, now the same group organizing the TEDx Haymarket Youth theme, Unmuted, joins me once again. I got to catch up with them to talk about what they've built and how that early moment that we shared continued to stay with them. Here's our conversation. So Rania Patel to my right. Hello, it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again, too.
Yes. Arab Patel. Hello,
Hello,
Arab.
nice to see you again.
And Ishana Patel.
Hi.
So this moment, first of all, before we get into this, it just really feels so good to be back with all of you. I could get super emotional thinking about it, and I'm really proud of all that you have done. I really am. When we met, absolutely, you were in third grade,
Yeah.
and what are you doing now? What grade are you going
I'm in
into?
11th grade, but I'm a rising senior.
A rising senior.
Yeah.
One more year.
I know, I'm so scared.
Oh my God, don't be scared. You're going to do great. I just know it. And you were in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And now, what year are you going into?
So I'm finishing off middle school. I'm going to be rising freshman next year.
Okay.
Pretty scared for that, but it's going to be like new beginning. So.
You're going into high school.
Yeah.
But you got a pretty good team here with you, so it's okay. Arav, now you've graduated.
Yep, just last Saturday.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
What's next for you?
Well, I'll be going to UVA for the next 4, so.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Okay. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, take me back to when we first met. I was so struck by how you were willing to spend time with senior citizens and how they responded to young people taking the time to do that. What went into you being able, I'll start with you, to talk with these, folks that were much older than you at that time? What made you feel comfortable to do that?
Yeah, so it started with like my relationship with my grandparents. I've always had a good relationship with them. And then it started branching out to their friends when we'd be at random functions. I'd like talk to them and just talking to the older generation. Like I've always felt comfortable hearing other people's stories. And then I realized that there's so many people in our community that don't have that outlet, don't have that connection of people to talk to. And I want to help them feel more comfortable talking to all people and not feel lonely.
Right. What did it mean for you? You were very young, but can you recall like what you got from it?
I just remember, like, same with Sarania, we were so close with our grandparents, and it just made me realize some people aren't able to get those connections, and so that really just made me feel really upset. But the one thing that Seeing Eye to Eye brought to me, it made me just
I felt pride in myself for feeling I could help them create relationships and just have fun doing things with people in different generations.
Right. Arif, like when you were talking with them, did you feel like you were building something that they looked forward to as well? Talking about the seniors there.
Absolutely. You know, I feel like when I was kind of going through that experience in elementary school, I learned a lot about how, you know, maybe like those type of relationships weren't exactly as like, you know, perfect, like TV oriented. You know, it could be something that was a little bit messier. We could talk about a lot of different things and learn a lot of different, I guess, lessons that you could carry through completely different meanings in conversation.
Right.
And I think they looked forward to kind of helping me learn those lessons. I really looked forward to talking to them and later on learning those lessons.
Right. What strikes me is a lot, and I might have said it back then too, but that a lot of times when people get older, society kind of makes them a little more invisible. They don't really speak to them as, you know, how they might have spoken with them 30 years before, you know, and all of that, and the respect. Though there is respect, it's almost kind of like, okay, that's good, you know. So why did you know, or how did you know that maybe your meetings really meant something to them?
That's a great question. So I knew that my meetings like actually meant something to them because even after the meetings, I continued to still talk to them. So I had pen pals from across the nation who I would send notes to for like holidays. I would tell stories to them. My favorite, I made actually like one of my best friends, Miss Selma, even though there was like a 90-year age gap, we were still able to connect. And so those long-term, like lifelong friendships, like made me realize like, okay, I'm not just doing this for a one-time meeting, I'm actually making like lifelong connections.
And Arif, I'll ask you because you were so young, but is there a moment, one thing that you can share with those watching that is just an example of what that time was like for you, or maybe something that someone said to you, or a moment that you shared? Is anything come to mind that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, one major like thing is, you know, back in 2018 when we were in Manassas at those like, you know, senior homes, the amount of people who were sharing the same sports teams as me, like because, you know, like my parents, or I guess my mom and my uncle, kind of dragged me to be a Cleveland sports fan instead of DC, and just seeing like, you know, people share that like in DC, like in those homes, it was like, oh my God, you know, it's like even across these massive age gaps, you can still talk about the same things, have the same interests.
Right.
And so I think that overlap kind of taught me a lot about not only seeing that from an intergenerational lens, but just honestly from a cultural lens between all of us.
I know that they would be so proud of you guys. I really do. I really do. So let's talk about how that morphs into kind of what you're doing now, this unmuted TEDx series. How do those experiences blend and lend themselves to what you're doing now with the TEDx talks?
So I think it's just noticing that there's so many different like kinds of people in the rooms. There's families, there's like even leaders, there's students at these TEDx events, and it just makes me realize there's so many different people that can kind of come together no matter the topic, just relating to the same thing. Like each generation has nothing to do with that.
Yeah. So you guys are behind it, right? Do you speak as well?
We did not speak.
Okay, so how do you sort of curate these experiences?
Yeah, so I'll start. My role was very much heavily involved in helping people edit their talks, I guess bring forward who they really are instead of just their list of accomplishments. Because, you know, through seeing eye to eye and through all these experiences, I kind of noticed that the stories that resonate the most with people is the stories about what's happening behind the scenes, what's happening in your head, what's happening in your heart, rather than necessarily like your resume or your list of accomplishments. And so kind of connecting like your life, people's life experiences was, I guess, like one of the major roles that I kind of enjoyed.
It was so good to catch up with those three. They're going to continue to do great things. I just know it. Well, still ahead, a nursing class in Baltimore that did something almost no one does. Every single graduate passed their national exam. Everyone on the first try. And also a teenager who is fighting to make sure a period never costs a girl a day away from school. Stay with us. All right, here is a number that stopped me dead in my tracks, 100%. Morgan State University's nursing program now ranks #1 in the state of Maryland. Here's why. The class of 2025, around 24 of them took a national exam. It's the National Council Licensure Examination, and that exam stands between a nursing student and an actual nursing career. Well, every single one of them passed on the very first try. Casey Baylor went to Northeast Baltimore into the simulation labs where they studied to find out how a program builds that.
Before you take the exam, you feel like you don't know anything. But after you pass the exam, you feel like all the sleepless night is beginning to pay off.
Much of what Zong Kelly Nazareth learned came from lab rooms like this at Morgan State University's Health and Human Services Center. It's where he and other students stepped into a nurse's shoes.
Simulation is where they will act out a real life scenario as if they're in the hospital.
You're the nurse, and we expect you to have nursing judgment.
It's also the place where Morgan nursing students built their confidence, earned their degrees, and prepared for the National Council Licensure Examination for registered nurses. It's also known as NCLEX RN. The entry-level exam allows you to practice nursing. For some nursing students, the test can be quite difficult, but roughly 22 2025 Morgan grads made it look easy after they all passed on their first attempt. That put Morgan State's nursing program at the top in the state for the 2025-2026 academic year.
What it says is that the things that we do to try to ensure excellence in our nursing grads is showing in the ranking, and we're very proud.
And so are 2026 grads and current nursing students.
Very empowering. I feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants right now.
Yasmin Morris just graduated and is preparing to take the NCLEX RN next month. Morris says she feels well prepared and is getting extra guidance from Nazareth.
To have someone that was just in your shoes not even a year ago help you out, it does make a big difference in a journey.
Roughly 22 graduates, 0 retakes, and the part that I keep coming back to is what happened after that exam was over. The graduate who passed turns around and then coaches the students behind them. The department even runs a postgraduate study program so no one sits for that test alone. Standing on the shoulders of giants, she said. In Baltimore, they are building the giants. Well, from a nursing program with a perfect record to a movement built entirely by a teenager. Period poverty. It affects millions of people across the nation, but one Maryland teenager is working to change that through the Red Poppy Initiative. It's a youth-led nonprofit dedicated to expanding access to menstrual products, education, and advocacy. Kaylin Ewan is the Maryland state lead of the Red Poppy Initiative, and Kaylin joins us now to talk about her work. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, other teenagers your age are just relaxing. They're not doing this much this summer, but you're doing so much to help. Why? Why did you feel the passion to be involved?
For sure. So since a young age, I've always been really passionate about gender equality, fighting for gender rights. And as a student athlete myself, I realized that there was really a lack of education surrounding menstrual education. And I felt like both myself, my friends, and my teammates didn't really have the resources necessary to take care of a very foundational part of our health and well-being. So through this organization, we try to help other young girls, other women, people who menstruate, to learn more about their own bodies, like become more educated, as well as having access to period products and just making conversation more comfortable.
Where did you see the need or the disparity? What are some young women, I guess, going through that maybe we don't think about or don't know about?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the main things, a lot, like at the root, there's a lot of stigma surrounding this conversation. And in fact, a study found that over 60% of young teen girls feel uncomfortable, feel stigmatized when they're talking about their periods. And in fact, I run a podcast for the Red Poppy Initiative in which I've interviewed dozens of young student athletes, health and policy professionals. And a common theme across the interviews in young athletes is that they feel that there's a lack of education. They don't really know how to take care of their body. And that's really one of the problems that we're trying to address.
You've done, the organization, a lot of lobbying on the national and international levels. What's the hope there when you're in front of lawmakers? What is that message that you're trying to get across?
For sure. I think there's two main things that we're trying to do. The first is getting more comprehensive menstrual health curriculums. Of course, the curriculums vary across states, but also when speaking to health and policy professionals, they identify that there's a very large lacking of menstrual health education, comprehensive menstrual health education across the nation. So that's one of the things that we're really trying to push for, and we actually faced some legislative success with that in Washington State, where we implemented some new curriculums. The other part is helping support bills that allow for more research into these menstrual health issues. Women's health is obviously many times very under-researched, so we want to support those bills passing through both our state legislators, the national legislator, to help improve education and research
And
there.
you're also like, boots on the ground as far as actual products.
Yes.
Can you talk to me about some of these period kits, like hundreds that you've given out?
For sure. So we obviously, I just talked about some of our policy initiatives, but we do so much in the community as well. One of the main things that we do, as you can see, are like our period products drives. We host them at schools in Maryland. We host them across our communities. And most recently, we collected over 1,000 period products. And in a period kit making event, we made over 300 period kits, which we're donating to local women's shelters around Maryland.
I think that is so wonderful. How can people support you? How can young people get involved?
Yeah, for sure. There are so many ways. I think first, I would love if everyone would follow us like on social media. It's on Instagram, the redpoppy.initiative and the redpoppyinitiative.rm. We post a lot of information on there. There's a lot of information about our upcoming drives, and you can also visit us on our website at the redpoppyinitiative.com. And for young girls, for people who just want to learn more about menstrual health, I'd really recommend that they check out our podcast on Spotify under the Red Poppy Initiative. We not only help break down the stigma by talking about periods, but we also talk to so many professionals who have such valuable insights, and there's just so much to learn.
I love it. I love the work that you're doing.
Thank you so
You're
much.
such a well-spoken young lady. Great luck to you as you are a junior in high school next year.
Yes.
Okay, what were you doing when you were a junior in high school? This is Kaylin Ewan with the Red Poppy Initiative. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Absolutely. Coming up, a graduation where a mother and son crossed the stage in the same class. She was the one asked to give the speech, and I'll count down the 3 best things I saw this week. It's all coming up next. Academy of Hope is an adult public charter school in Washington, D.C. It exists for the people the system moved past, adults who left school before they finished, and who decided sometimes decades later that the work was not done. In the Academy of Hope class of 2026, a mother and a son shared a special connection. They graduated at the same time. And when the school chose the commencement speaker, they chose her, Gina Charles. And this is the part I want you to hold on to. She did not go back for herself alone.
But I want you to know that my greatest accomplishment was not the degree, and it wasn't the certification, and it even wasn't graduate school. My greatest accomplishment is that I never gave up on myself.
We've been looking at this story and all that the Academy of Hope offers, and when your story was first brought to us about you and your son graduating at the same time, and then how you went on to be chosen to give the commencement address, we wanted to get uplifted by your story. So tell me about your journey to graduation, what that entailed.
Well, you know, my journey to graduation is it's very interesting. Well, to me, I initially was looking for an opportunity for my son, and I went online, and he used to do tattoos. I'm looking at phlebotomy training because I'm thinking, hey, you know, Jordan, you can get in and get out, you know, with that. And I know DC is notorious for having great programs. So I typed in phlebotomy training, Academy of Hope pulled up. And when Academy of Hope came up, I started seeing that they had other programs within the school. So at that time, I was finishing up undergrad because I was doing a different program, and I happened to see that they had IT as well. So I said, okay, well, let me make sure that I said, okay, so they have IT and phlebotomy,
Right.
but let me make sure that there's not an age restriction,
Yes.
because I'm famous for calling places and them saying, oh no, it's for your child or it's for your this, and and then I'm like, you feel quite embarrassed. But when I saw that it didn't have that, and I went down the list, I recognized a name that was in on the school roster, principal there. I said, okay, I'm going to have to call and find out about this.
Sure.
But it was really about Jordan,
Right.
and when I did that, it started from there. We did the testing to get involved. I found out that there wasn't any age restriction.
I was going to say there wasn't an age restriction.
No, not at
right,
all, because
right.
I'm AARP over here.
Okay,
and
well, how you doing? Good. Okay, right.
and just joined.
Yeah.
Those are great discounts.
And we took the testing. The phlebotomy program was filled.
Yeah.
But Jordan also did the testing for IT. So we both ended up in the IT training program, the workforce program that they have at Academy of Hope.
That's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just enthralled in this
Oh,
story.
no,
But
so
then what
yeah.
happened?
So then what happens is Jordan was in the introductory IT class. We both were. But after the first day, because I had IT background, and I just wanted to soak up everything that I could soak up, because time is ticking for me.
Yeah. It's not, but go ahead.
But I just felt like, so and they said, hey, look, if you have additional credentials that you want us to examine and you can test out, we'll put you in the higher class.
Right.
Because the ultimate goal was to get my A+, my CompTIA A+ certification in networking and hardware. And that would be like my first certification into IT. And so I showed him my credentials, my resume, this. I said, oh, Gina, let's put you in that class. So I'm like, Jordan, listen, you know computers, right? Because we both did music and we're both familiar with computers. I said, you can come along with me. And he's just like, no, Ma. And that's the whole thing about the interesting point about going to school with your child.
Right.
Because Jordan he's 31. He turned 31 2 weeks ago, actually. And he sometimes, they don't want to listen to their mom.
Sure.
But it's amazing. This opportunity is amazing because we were able to study together. We were able to bounce ideas off of each other. We would show up. I remember showing up to orientation and, I was on time and he wasn't.
Right.
But and you're sitting there and, one thing about Academy of Hope is that from day one, you feel like family. So you sat down in orientation and I'm being mama bear, like really, I'm here,
Yes.
But then when he walked in, it was like, wow, we're doing this journey together. And I know that at the end of this journey, it's going to be great.
Eric, I want to ask you just about the Academy of Hope, and we're talking about from like phlebotomy to IT. Just talk to me about the opportunities that it creates for the residents of DC.
Well, I jokingly call Academy of Hope the best kept secret in the city, even though it's no longer that. But to that point, it's full circle for our adult learning society environment. You have GED and high school credentials, but you also have that workforce learning. I tell folks it allows you to get the learning you may never had or kind of freshen up on your skills.
Especially now.
Yep. And
there are lots of people looking to pivot because that job isn't there anymore. The federal job that you had for like all those years that you thought you can depend on isn't there. Whatever, in any career field. So this pivot is amazing.
And Gina's a great example. She had that college credential, but still wanted to do something else. And the beauty of Academy of Hope is it's free for district residents.
I want you to say that again. It is somebody in the back did not hear you.
It is free for district residents. And we
Right.
specialize in working with our adult learner population.
Yes.
And that passion that you hear with Gina is what got me on the board.
And I leave you with this. Learning to love yourself. It is the greatest love of all.
What was the main message of your commencement address?
If you learn to love yourself enough, you will find it in yourself to make yourself a better person. And that's what that's why graduating is just not the end all of end all. Once you graduate, that's the starting point. Now what's next?
Right.
So if you love yourself enough, you'll look around and say, how can I be better? You know, and let me find the tools that will support me to be better. And that was what my graduation commencement was about. We all have things that are going on in our lives, but you figure out where you are, you start where you are, you figure out where you're going, and you figure out the rest along the way.
Right.
And when you learn to love yourself, then you learn to invest in yourself. And that's what Academy of Hope is all about, investing in yourself.
How'd Jordan say you did?
He said, not everybody moves like you, Ma, but you know, but it's great to know that your son can look at you and say, hey, look, and I did it mostly so I could cut out any excuses that he had. I could say, okay, you know what? I did it, so you can do it.
Yeah.
And he's doing it.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's doing it.
Well, appreciate both of you. Eric, thank you for the work that you're doing, making sure Academy of Hope is here for generations.
At least another 40 years.
Another 40 years, all righty. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Every week, I save things, videos, posts, photographs, things that just stop my thumb from scrolling, right? Most of them never make air, so I decided to just show you. So these are the 3 best things I saw this week. I'm going to start in Prince George's County. Police say someone threw a kitten from a moving car on the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. I know, hard to believe, right? Officers found it huddled on the edge. That kitten was scared but unhurt. They scooped it up and they got it the care that it needed. And I keep coming back to this one because of how fast those officers moved in for something that was so small. No one had to tell them to care, they just did. And that's why that made my list. The next, my lesson goes far beyond sports that I was able to share with you. A team of college athletes proving the biggest wins don't always happen on the court. And they're making a difference in giving back at Sousa Middle School in Southeast Washington. The Big 12 sends student representatives to serve communities across the country, and DC was one of their stops. They play basketball with local students, help refresh the school garden, and build new wellness spaces for teachers and staff.
It's good to do something like this with the kids because it's something outside of sports, it's something outside of just like the norm, you know what I'm saying, that we're able to like put our all into and, you know, put our efforts into. And it's just good to do with the kids, you know, they having fun throwing dirt around and stuff.
It's really amazing, like I get to experience being with older people that actually play sports. And I shot on the big dude. He's 6'6", bro. I shot on him and I made it.
7th grader Delante says that he loves basketball, but he plays some football too. The Big 12 athletes left him and his classmates with a simple message: put school first. Sports will follow. And that's a lesson that outlasts any game. And that's why that one made my list. And my number 1, it's something I bring up often because it truly uplifts me. It's the way this community shows up for all things big and small. And the Prince George's County Animal Shelter has dogs waiting right now for someone to give them a second chance. They need adopters, fosters, or rescue partners to step up. That shelter is just too crowded. That's the only way they know how to clear the shelter and give these dogs a second chance. But every time we put that call out, the response has been inspiring. People opening up their homes, look, their cars, their weekends for a dog they have never met. Well, look at what we just did in this half hour. 3 students from Haymarket who learned how to listen to somebody 80 years older than they are and then turned that into a stage for other young people. Also a nursing class in Baltimore that decided all of them were going to make it or none of them would. And a high schooler in Maryland who looked at something that nobody wanted to say out loud and said it out loud. And lastly, a mother in Washington who went back and got that thing that she was owed, and she brought her son along with her. Nobody handed any of them a platform, they built one, and then they held the door open. And if you know a young person here in the DMV doing something big, I want to meet them because in a few years, I'm going to come back and ask them what happened next. And I want to have been there right from the beginning. That's going to do it for this edition of Get Uplifted. I'm Allison Seymour. Thanks for watching.